Why electricity's demand is always increasing?
Because our country is still developing, and we forecast the electricity demand according to the GDP. And as you may know, the GDP for our country keeps increasing. That is because our country is still developing. We need power for industry, we need power for business, we need power for residential consumers. So that means our economy is still growing. That's why we need more electricity.
Right now, Thailand has a history of over-forecasting its energy needs.
Yes.
So through better energy planning that has more realistic forecasts, but also considers energy efficiency measures and also considers renewable energy technologies, Thailand would not need this electricity.
This dam, the Sayaburi, as well as other dams and other power plants, are proposed without starting from the very source of this question, that what do we actually need? Do we need energy? How much energy that we actually need?
It is undeniable that the great mother of the river, Mekong River, has been a regional life bloodline, an abundant source of food, a treasure of Mekong culture, and a giver. For so many generations, the mother's indefective duty of feeding her children has been unquestionably perfect. The reciprocity of this relation has also been unbreakable, as if the chain of spectacular biodiversity would never go extinct. Nature is meant to be sustainable, and with early obstacle, human. Mekong River is recently perceived as a battery of Southeast Asia, with its consistent current and stream that fit to produce power. Man-made hydropower dams emerge as if there are no alternatives. Man-made dams occur as if no one cares. Man-made barrages benefit some, but destructive to millions.
ล่าสุดนะคะช.กันช่างค่ะลงนามในสัญญาจ้างกับบริษัทไซยบุรีพาวเวอร์จำกัดค่ะเพื่อที่จะเป็นสัญญาจ้างการก่อสร้างโรงไฟฟ้าพลังน้ำไซยบุรีหรือตัวเขื่อนไซยบุรีด้วยนะคะรวมทั้งโรงไฟฟ้าด้วย
I the transboundary impacts that would be emerged or caused by the Sayaburi as well as other dams on the mainstream Mekong River would be different. But what is similar is that this impact will be transboundary. It will not only stop at the end of the national state or the state border, but it will go very far down to the delta as well as to the sea.
And the strategic environmental assessment showed that these dams would block fish from migrating down into the delta. They also said because of the impacts to hydrology and sediment flows, the dams are expected to impact fisheries in the ocean. However, this has not yet been adequately studied, so it's an area that further study is required. It will also block sediment, and that sediment is extremely important for agriculture, but it's also important for riverbank stability. And being that the Mekong Delta has many channels, this is a huge problem because you also have impacts of climate change, and then if you were build the dam, it would further compound the impacts and make it much worse.
ถ้าพูดถึงพวกผลกระทบนี่ ทางผู้พัฒนาโครงการหรือทางเจ้าของประเทศเขาก็ศึกษา EIA อะไรของเขา เรามีมาตรการแก้ไขอะไรที่มันจะให้มีผลกระทบกับสิ่งแวดล้อมน้อยที่สุดเท่าที่จะทำได้มันก็คงมีบ้างมันก็ต้องบาลานซ์กันนะระหว่างไฟฟ้าที่เราได้มาใช่ไหมฮะกับสิ่งแวดล้อมเนี่ยจะต้องเสียไปบ้าง
Traveling into Sayaburi province proved to be the most difficult, time-consuming, almost inaccessible. Yet, this might be the reason for where should the controversial dam be built. Stark comparison was tangible. Roads on the way to the Sayaburi town were terrible, bumpy, and sometimes broken. But the one leading to the expected-to-be dam site was paved, and the dust was absent. The indication of ongoing construction and sign of preparation has always been there. A local man leads us to a more complex issue.
พวกเจ้าเว้ากันได้เธอจะได้ฮู้เสียตังค์ให้จาก5,000 บาทเขาได้
ค่ะ
มีทหารยามบ่
มีโอ้
โอ้มี24 ชั่วโมงเลยปะ
มี24สมัยนั่นนะ
ไม่ลุงแล้วคนแถวนี้เขาอยากได้เขื่อนจริงเหรอหรือเขาไม่เอาเขาพอใจปะ
เขื่อนนี่น่ะ
บ่
ฮู้เด้มาว่ารัฐบาลเราเอามาเสี่ยงมาสั่งมาเฮ็ดเราประชาชนก็ขัดขึ้นบ่ได้แล้วก็นายทุนมาเข้ามาสำรวจรายบอนประเทศลาวนี่มันรายบอนแล้วมันเฮ็ดแล้วมันไม่มีทองบนนี้มีทองเยอะ
โอ้มีทองเยอะ
มีทองเยอะเขาไปได้4-5 ต้นเขาจะเอาทองนี่ไปขายแล้วก็เอาเงินมาทำเพื่อนเข้าใจไหมถ้าไม่มีทองเราไม่เฮ็ดเราไม่ทำ
ถ้าเอาไปขางไฟใส่ไฟแล้วมันจะเป็นสีทอง
แต่ว่าตัวนี้มันก็บ่สร้างอีกว่าเนาะ
ยังไม่ได้สร้างก็
มันก็บ่รู้ข้อมูลแล้วว่าเขาก็บ่ได้ศึกษาเรื่องนี้
เจ้า
เราก็ได้ยินแต่ทางสภาพแวดล้อมทางหลายประเทศเนาะเพิ่นเว้าเนาะว่าผลกระทบของมันนั้นจะทำให้ไม่ยังมีผลกระทบต่อสภาพแวดล้อมเป็นต้นว่าเรื่องการที่ทางเกี่ยวข้องน่ะสัตว์น้ำว่าซั่นๆเนาะ เป็นเว้าหั่นน่ะ
เส้นทางของสัตว์น้ำ
แต่ว่าตัวนี้นี่ก็มีผลดีเนาะผลดีอยู่บนไหนเพราะว่าพวกเราจะได้อันน่ะนำใช้อันน่ะไฟฟ้าเนาะแล้วก็นำอันน่ะใช้ไฟฟ้าเข้าหน่อยอันน่ะเวียงงานอุตสาหกรรมวัดสันสานออก
ไฟฟ้าสำหรับอุตสาหกรรม
แล้วก็มันก็บ่มีเฉพาะผลดีต่อประเทศเฮาอันน่ะด้านเดียวเนาะมันก็ประเทศเพื่อนบ้านคืออย่างทางประเทศไทยเนาะ
คนดีต่อไทย
ลุงแล้วถ้าเกิดแล้วหลายปีแล้วใช่ไหมคะหาปลาแล้วปีนี้กับปีก่อนๆเนี้ยอันไหนหาปลาได้มากกว่ากันนะ
ปีก่อน
ปีก่อนเนาะ
ปีนี้แค่ใบที่ถูกนะปีนี้
ยังไม่ได้ถึงตัวเลย
หรอ
ไม่ถึงตัวใหญ่
แต่ก็ได้บ้างใช่ไหมคะ
ได้อยู่
ได้อยู่
ตัวน้อยตัวใหญ่ก็ได้
ได้
ตัวใหญ่แท้ยังไม่ได้หรอก
จะได้แค่เบิ่งได้แค่
ลุงถ้าเกิดเขาเฮ็ดเขื่อนถ้าเกิดเขาเฮ็ดเขื่อนเนี่ยปลามันจะเกือบจะไม่มีเลยนะ
จังหวะ
Furthermore, the dam will block sediment from flowing through, and the sediment carries important nutrients. And so those nutrients help replenish agricultural fields. And so they allow for people to grow vegetables on their riverbank gardens, and they also allow for good paddy production and stuff. And that also is a transboundary impact. And so we know that the people who will be impacted by the dam are expected to have to use greater fertilizers and spend more money to try to produce food.
If the dam constructed, many dams will be constructed along the Mekong. One in Siaburi in Laos, and Cambodian government also has the plan to build a huge dam in Sambo in Korochek province. So I think it will cause a huge impact on Tonle Sap. The depth of Tonle Sap will get shallow and shallow, and people here will not find enough fish to catch as they doing nowadays.
Tonle Sap, the river that runs backwards, a tributary of the Mekong in Cambodia that is the beating heart of the Mekong river system. At the height of the monsoon season or flood season, the submerged forest around the lake becomes nursery for the Mekong fishery. In the silty water among the tree roots, billions of fish fry grow into fat adults. This remarkable cycle will further approach to the state of extinction if dams exist within the range of Southeast Asian territory.
មានការយល់ឃើញយ៉ាងម៉េចភ័យខ្លាចត្រីវត្តមានឆ្លងទៅឆ្លងមកយើងនៅតំបន់នេះវាភ័យនឹងត្រីឯណា
So it has the impact on the livelihood of people living along the Tonle Sap Lake, the Great Lake of Tonle Sap, and the number of, the amount of fish that they have caught would be decreased remarkably, because if they block the dam, means fish cannot move force and back along the Mekong rivers. So the amount of fish would be decreased very much, and it has a huge impact on people living along the lake.
Sayaburi Dam could strongly influence and stimulate the revival of other proposed dams on the Mekong River. 3 dams are planned within Cambodia.
Is he aware of any dams in Cambodia?
បងមានដឹងអំពីការកសាងទំនប់អីនៅខ្មែរឬក៏នៅឡាវទេបងនៅខ្មែរយើងមាននៅប្រមូលរីអកិសនីនៅកញ្ចេះបាទនៅណាវិញ And so
Where?
The river
Here.
Yes. Now and going down. Yes.
Yes.
Crotches somewhere here. Stone train and then crotches.
So there's gonna be dam here.
The dam somewhere here is called Sambo.
Sambo, yes, Sambo.
And any others? He said somewhere in Koh Kong province. So where is Koh Kong? He's here. Koh Kong, right?
Yeah, Koh Kong.
It's small dams. Yes.
Oh, okay. So is he okay? Does he know if there is a dam here? So what's gonna affect the Tonle Sap?
បើសិនជាមានការកសាងទំនប់កន្លែងនេះតើនឹងផ្ដល់ឥទ្ធិពលទៅដល់បឹងទន្លេសាបយើងទេបងតាមបងយល់ឃើញព្រោះពេលកសាងរីកសិនដល់ប៉ះទៅដល់បត់ត្រីចៃទៅប៉ះដល់ត្រីវាឆ្លងកាត់អង្កែ So it affect on the moving of fish because if there is a dam here fish cannot move forth and back through the river.
Okay, so he
knows, yes.
Okay.
During the dry season, the water leaves the lake for the last destination, the delta. It is a wonder of nature. Cần Thơ cào trắng nhất trong, ai đi đến đó lòng con muốn về. Vietnamese as well as foreigners define Cần Thơ almost similarly. The biggest delta city, the busiest delta town, the rice bowl of Vietnam, or the breadbasket of Vietnam. Modernity and traditional way of life coexist peacefully in the city, located on the southwestern bank of the Ho River, which is the largest branch of Mekong River or Cuu Long. How many have realized that at this stage, the Mekong Delta is at stake? Environmental Impact Assessment report on the Mekong Mainstream Dam projects has lacked a significant in-depth study of how directly would the delta be impacted by the dams. Sayaburi, a big dam located on mainstream in lower Mekong Basin, is a runoff river dam, but still has a storage capacity of 220 million cubic meters. Some of this capacity will be used for daily regulation during the dry season, leading to serious impacts to downstream ecology and natural hydrology. The cumulative downstream impacts of Sayaburi on the 11 other dams have not yet been adequately studied. Meanwhile, the dams and water reservoirs would make the lower course of Mekong Delta exhausted. The dams would also badly affect the water natural resources, agricultural production, aquaculture, water transport, ecological environment, and influence the lives of local residents. Especially, the Mekong River Delta would sink fast below the seawater level, and the process would be sped up with the impacts of seawater level rise caused by the climate changes.
well, the delta is probably the area where it's the most devastating because it's not just an issue of losing a resource, it's not just an issue of a lost fishery or something which will affect, say, Cambodia. It will be an issue of the very stability of the delta itself. Because as we were discussing earlier, that with this 160 million tons of sediment that comes out of the river each year, that spreads out and deposits on the delta itself and along the coastlines. Yeah, and geographically the delta itself needs the sediments to stay, to be maintained. Without the sediments you would get increased rates of erosion and then you would get a shrinking of the delta. So the coastline would move inland and you would progressively over decades lose land.
I think if there is a big dam in the upper Mekong River, it will be very terrible for the people in the downstream of the Mekong River because in the dry season, you see, there is not enough water for the people here, and the salty water from the ocean will enter from the estuary. And it will affect the farming and also, the livelihood of the people here, especially for those who raise the fish in the Mekong River. And the second thing is that when the rainy season comes and the flooding season comes, more and more water. When the upper stream, the dam from upper stream, they release water, so flooding will happen. It's more serious than in the past. So it's very terrible if there is a big dam in the upper stream of the Mekong River.
Local awareness of the impacts caused by mainstream dams is rare. People perceive that the changes in the delta mainly due to climate changes.
So basically, she knows it's changing. Maybe probably because of the weather, but not because of the dam. Isn't it so?
Okay.
If she really.
Theo tôi nghĩ thì cái sự thay đổi về cái nguồn nước cũng như là cái mực nước cũng như là thời tiết là do nó thay đổi do là thời tiết hay là do tác động của những con đập người ta xây ở trên thượng nguồn sông Mekong. Và tôi cũng nghĩ là nó do đập thủy điện người ta xây trên thượng nguồn. She doesn't know whether it's affected by the dam in the upper Mekong River, but she just thinks that maybe because of the weather changing.
The islet, situated in the middle of Kwu Long Delta, is home to many kinds of lives, human and plants. Lives have been sustainable, but threats are approaching.
Mà tháng 7, tháng 8 thì nó cũng như dâng cao lên chút vậy hả? Dâng cao lên rồi ở phường người ta rồi người ta lại người ta cũng tiếp rồi vậy đó.
Có thấy cái con sông Mekong của mình sao con? Con sông Cửu Long á, thấy nó có chẳng hạn như nó có ảnh hưởng tốt hay là xấu đến cái cuộc sống của mình?
Ảnh hưởng tốt.
It has a very good impact.
Là ở ngoài sông nó vô, mà tại vì biết sao cái nước cái này như mặn nó rụng quá thì cái nước nó hơi dơ. Nó hơi dơ chứ mình đâu có xài trong đây để dành tưới cây không, tới tháng mùa nắng thì mình tưới, mà cái này mùa mưa đâu có tưới gì chi.
Vậy thì cái con sông nước sông vẫn còn xài trong này để tưới cây thôi
chứ đâu có xài gì trong này.
Nước cái nào ngập không? Ngập này.
Nước ngoài bể đê chắc cỡ ngang đây.
Bể đê, nhưng mà nhờ cái đê ở ngoài nhỏ
cái đê
nhỏ.
Nó cao, cái đê quá trời cao đó.
An 18-year-old boat girl told us how she feels attached to her boat living life and wanting to move to nowhere. Mekong Delta is home to millions of fish stocks. It is the end of the swimming way for Mekong fish. While Laos would like to position itself as the battery of Southeast Asia, Thailand agreed to process 95% of the energy generated. The fate of downstream states Cambodia and Vietnam has very little weight in the equation. According to UN dispatch studies, the real losers would be farmers and fisher people in Vietnam living along the Mekong Delta who depend heavily both on healthy fisheries and predictable river system.
เขาแก้ไขอย่างมากอย่างเช่นพวกตะกอนที่เขากลัวว่ามันจะไม่ไหลตามน้ำเพราะเราไม่มีเขื่อนกั้นเนี่ย เขาก็จะสร้างเป็นอุโมงค์ใต้ข้างใต้เขื่อนอีกทีเพื่อให้ตะกอนมันผ่านไปได้บางครั้งเขาอาจจะเปิดปิดอะไรนี่แต่รายละเอียดผมไม่ทราบนะแต่เขาพยายามแก้ไขหรืออย่างเช่นปลาเนี่ยฮะเขาก็ทำเป็นบันไดปลาซึ่งมันจะไม่เล็กยากมากสำหรับปลาจะขึ้นแล้วเขาจะทำเป็นแบบให้มันมีสโลปเตี้ยๆหน่อยโดยใช้เหมือนเป็นแบบซิกแซกอย่างเงี้ยมันก็จะปลาก็สามารถจะว่ายขึ้นไปได้ง่ายกระแสน้ำจะได้ไม่แรงอะไรอย่างเงี้ย
By building fish passages, they believe that the fish could move up and down the river so the dam would not be an obstacle. However, all technology that exists right now remains unproven. Fishery experts met together a few years ago and they looked at all of the technology that existed and stated because the Mekong is home to the world's largest inland fisheries and it's also the second most biodiverse river in the world, there's nothing that exists to be able to mitigate impacts because of you have such a large volume and such a large great number of species that are moving up and down the river at one point in time. So they said it would be extremely difficult and expensive to try to create a technology that might be able to mitigate the impacts.
Thailand wants to light up her home by buying electricity from her neighbors rather than producing by herself.
If we look back maybe around 30 years in Thailand environmental history, we can see that there has been many projects, large-scale projects that cause impacts on social and environmental aspect. And the Thai public has been aware about this kind of impact a lot. And we can see that any new power plants that are proposed anywhere in Thailand would get very strong welcome, or I can say that opposition from the local groups or from the local communities. People know that there will be negative impact on the ecosystem, on the air, on their livelihoods. So it is not easy for the dam builders to build a new dam or new power plant, or new large power plant in our own country. This is one of the main reasons why the dam builders are going outside, going to the neighboring countries where there is less freedom of expression, where there is less of opportunity to voice the concern by the local communities.
The clock has been ticking since 15th of March 2012. The developer claimed the construction has begun. Power will thus cost a life. Power will not be just expensive, but life-threatening. The coexistence between modernity and traditional ways of life will be hard to accept. Every light turned on, there's a cost. But it's not paid by money. Money won't go extinct, lives do.